your presentation, please.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening. Welcome everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to come and give this talk. I'd like to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. It's difficult for me as an academic to talk a little bit about it. You get me on a subject like this that I feel very passionate about, and we may have a late dinner. So give me the book if I start going too long, because I'm all that stands between us and dinner and socializing and the networking, which is the really valuable stuff. I'd like to talk about entrepreneurial process, specifically by invitation, but there's a couple other things I want to touch on briefly as well. Opportunity spotting and entrepreneurial thinking. There's a lot of success in entrepreneurship has to do with thinking differently than other people. There's mechanical skills, all kinds of business skills that you need to master, but if you really want to be good at this, you've got to be different in your mind than other people. So I want to talk briefly about those things. And I got on the slide there says orthogonal perspective, meaning I don't want to talk about them in the way that everybody will talk about them. There's some really good follow-on sessions in this series. I think you've got the documents about some of those, opportunity spotting and so forth. That's all great, and I subscribe to all of that stuff. What I'd like to talk about, for instance, in opportunity spotting is from a different angle, to give you a different perspective on it, to not duplicate that material, but something that may help you to get more value from that when you come to that session. So I'd like to talk to those two things as well. Just a little bit about who is this guy up front. That's some of the places that I've worked and some of the things that I've done prior to becoming an academic. And I think what's relevant there is I've been on both sides of the table. I've been in big corporations, 50,000 employees. I've been in small corporations, 2 employees. I've been in the entrepreneur side of the table, running around trying to raise money and hire key people. I've been on the venture capital side, trying to find entrepreneurs who are worthy of giving money to. There's lots of money around if you've done your thinking. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. I'm trying to give you some of my views or my insights based on that kind of perspective. Currently, I'm a professor at Ryerson. We are the largest business school in Canada, and we are by far the leading institution about teaching entrepreneurship. We own this space. We have so many talented people in my area who are entrepreneurs, proven entrepreneurs, successful serial entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, and they're academics. And they've got this interesting balance of practical real-world knowledge and the academic rigor to be able to think differently. And there's a lot of nonsense believed out on the street about entrepreneurship. And some of the parts that I'm going to talk about today to try to dispel some myths. Things that everybody out on the street believes about entrepreneurs that we know isn't true. And so I'm going to try and give you some of those things because those are the kind of things that allow you to step away from the herd. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to be willing to do things that nobody else will do because everybody else thinks they're crazy. And you've got to be sure, no, this isn't crazy. This is a good thing to do. So I want to spend a bit of time talking about that. This idea of balancing what the theory says, what academics might know is actually true, with the practical real-world knowledge to make a success of it. Because book learning is only take you so far. You've got to actually do stuff as an entrepreneur. So I want to talk about this academic intellectual rigor versus the kinds of war stories, the stories that you get from successful entrepreneurs who've been there and done it, because both are extremely valuable. If you talk purely to academics, we're up in the ivory tower, disconnected from reality. We got all these nice theories and we draw things on whiteboards and all that stuff, and most academics don't actually know much about entrepreneurship. Every business school in the country talks about it now. It's a very sexy subject in universities. Everybody, oh yes, we have an entrepreneurship program. Most of them don't know anything about the field. They have nobody actually doing this sort of stuff. And certainly most academics, most professors have never actually done anything entrepreneurial. They've never had to make a payroll. They've never cold called a customer, never sold anything. They write nice papers. But those are valuable papers because they do have clear thinking in them. So that real world experience that you're going to hear from our other two speakers tonight is extremely valuable stuff because they've really been there. And that knowledge of being in the trenches, what really happened, you can't get from reading academic stuff. On the other hand, I'll caution you, be a little careful about listening to war stories because there's a couple of things that sometimes pop up, and we've already heard them. First of all, that's one person's experience, and you've got to be careful generalizing from a sample that has one person in it. Somebody else may have had a completely different trajectory, different story, different path to success. So although that worked for one entrepreneur, it might not be the right thing for you. And particularly this idea of success bias. We tend to only look at those successful entrepreneurs, and we say, she's been hugely successful, what did she do? I'll do that. Without, as John pointed out, yeah, but so did all the failed entrepreneurs. They all did that too. That's got nothing to do with success. But we never look at failures. We never study the failures. And therefore, we can never correctly identify which factors actually led to the success and which ones were just coincidence. So be careful about it. Use a little grain of salt. That was definitely true and real valuable experience for this entrepreneur. Would it work for me or not? That takes your own careful thinking. Because there's a lot of false beliefs out there, as I said. And just as some examples, we heard already, Valliere made the comment, this idea, are entrepreneurs born or are they made? And I absolutely agree with his comments. Anybody can be an entrepreneur. You don't born to be an entrepreneur. We used to think, for instance, that there was such a thing as an entrepreneurial personality. If you don't know personality theory, that's the 5 dimensions of personality. We can score you on all of those things and tell you exactly where you fit. And people used to think, well, you better be high in extroversion. You got to be up there and be able to sell. And otherwise, you'll never be a success as an entrepreneur. Nonsense. The research does not bear it out, and we've known that for 20 years. There's no such thing as an entrepreneurial personality. There are successful entrepreneurs of every type. So whatever your personality style is, great. You can still do this. There's no limits based on your personality. There's also, we then started to think, maybe it has something to do with some of your other personal traits. So that's false. Maybe it's some of these other kinds of traits, like your optimism. And John pointed out, have nothing to do with the success. There are lots of optimistic failures. And there are lots of pessimistic successes. It's got nothing to do with it. We know that. People on the street don't know that. First point there, risk tolerance. There's a belief out there that entrepreneurs are big risk takers, heroic risk takers. It's not true. We go and measure them time after time, controlled studies of the risk-taking propensity of individuals, of entrepreneurs versus who will we compare them to? Bank managers. No difference. There is no difference in the risk-taking of entrepreneurs. It only looks like they're taking risks because they're doing stuff that we don't understand. But if you knew what they knew, it's not risky. They have information that regular people don't have. So they can take moves that look risky, but entrepreneurs are not big risk takers. So if you're not a big risk taker, that's fine too. Because if you're playing smart in the area that you know, you aren't going to be taking those kinds of risks. So lots of things that are out there that we think are false. There are some things that we think do actually matter. You've got to have passion. You've got to be committed to this. It's a hard path to follow. A very hard path to follow. And so you've got to believe in it. So you've got to be able to stick with it, be perseverant about it, and flexible, because as you get your company out and rolling, get out in the market is going to teach you stuff. It's going to teach you that the market is not what you thought it was, that the product they want is not what you thought it was. Even if you did the market research, people lie in market research. Customers lie to you all the time. You will discover that the thing you thought you were launching, it never turns out to be that. The company always goes sideways somewhere along the way, and you should be prepared for that. So all kinds of things that work, and lots of things that don't work. And I'll talk briefly about some of these, what I call entrepreneur wannabes. But be careful if you find yourself in any of these categories. People who think they're going to be an entrepreneur and are setting themselves up for trouble. First one, valuation flippers. People who are going to play the stock game. I'm going to put together a really nice story. It's going to be FBC, fully buzzword compliant. Whatever the cool buzzword is now, hey, that's our company. I should probably update the slide. Web 2.0 is old now. It's got to have cloud computing in it somewhere. Whatever the current buzzword is, right? And then we'll just play a story on the investors, and then we'll take our money out as fast as we can. That won't succeed. The business school guys, hey, it's okay to knock your own team. I'm going to knock the MBAs. Lots and lots of analysis. They've read every Gartner report or Forrester report. You can get a Gartner report to say anything you want, just pay them enough. No, I'm kidding. Only. Lots and lots of analysis. Of course, it has to be distilled down into 2x2 matrices. That's the number one thing you learn when you do your MBA, is how to draw 2x2s, and they know everything because they've done the analysis. That's not worth anything, does it? You have to go talk to real customers. It's the only way you'll find out what's really going on. Next group, vitamin M junkies. Vitamin M, give me the money and I can fix everything. They think, give me the money and then I will solve all the problems in the company. And they don't understand that they've got it exactly backwards. You never get money like that. If you solve the problems, you can raise money easily. So you've got to think about where you put your energy. You can't just spend all your time running around trying to chase money, because it doesn't work that way. Next group. The dreamers. And I'm going to do this thing and it's going to be so totally cool. Nowadays, some of the social entrepreneurs will fall into this category. But even the commercial entrepreneurs, the for-profit entrepreneurs who are just out, I want to make a lot of money because one day I want to buy an island and retire. Wonderful idea. They don't actually know how to do anything well. So you got to be careful because entrepreneurship is about doing stuff. You can have the greatest, slickest business plan in the world. You can have spotted a fantastic business opportunity. But if you can't execute, it's not worth anything. The world is full of business plans, gathering dust, unfunded, because there's nobody who will actually roll up their sleeves and do it. And rolling up your sleeves and doing it is a lot of hard work. Long hours, hard work, stress, family stress. It's a tough path to go down. It's an incredibly rewarding path. It's the best path to go down, but it's difficult. And so you can't just be somebody who reads and talks about things. You've got to be willing to do. Hardcore techies, the engineers. I'm an engineer also, so it's okay to slag them. They've invented a better mousetrap. They've invented some really cool gadget. You know, we got this really cool piece of biotech or something like that, and that's all it takes because we've got the best technology. We've got the best product. So now we'll just sit back and our company will be fantastic. The product's got nothing to do with it. That's the least important part of your company, the product. So if you've got a cool piece of technology, nice. At least it's table stakes. It lets you get in the game. But there's a lot more to being a successful entrepreneur. It's a lot more to running a company than just having a good product. Sometimes we get people who actually have sorted it all out. They actually do have a good product for an identifiable market, and they've got a good plan for how to execute it, but they've got a good plan. They've got one thing. They're a one-trick pony. And while that product is likely to be very successful, because it's solving a real need for people who have money and all that other kind of stuff that you learn in opportunity spotting session, that's all they have. That's nice. What will happen when that market runs its life cycle? Because every market does. Eventually that market will move on to something else. What else you got in the pipeline? Nothing? How are you going to fill it? Where do your bright ideas come from? How are you going to build a company? Because a product does not make a company. A company is a much bigger and more complex beast than just having one cool product for a market. So a bunch of sorts of wannabes, and thank God we sometimes have people who have it all together. People who've got the capability of building a real and sustainable company. They got smarts in the street, in the trenches. They've got the academic smarts not to repeat the same mistakes that everybody else makes. You know the infant mortality rate for new companies? 80% of new companies die within 4 years. And it's always for the same reason. And we know what those reasons are. Like top 10 reasons, and this is why they die. And people keep doing it over and over again. So once in a while we get people who've got both sides of this. And I hope that's all of you, because we really do want you guys to be successful. Canada needs people like you. All the growth and future prosperity depends on people like you. New industries and companies like Google and things, they don't fall out of the sky. It's people like you who make them. So I hope that we're going to see lots of great successes coming from this group. Now, they specifically asked me to talk about the entrepreneurial process, and I had to think about what that means. There's a lot of different ways that you might talk about it. You might talk, for instance, about the commercialization process, how you go from having invented a cool thing or discovered a cool thing, all the way to a complete and saleable product. And there's a lot that goes into that. But I'm going to talk in a slightly broader context, much more akin to the various phases that you will go through as you get your new venture up and running. So let me just talk about these 14 steps that you're setting yourself up for. This is what you have to go through or to look forward to. This stuff is a hell of a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a great time. First one, you start off with an idea. So you have an idea. You can do this anytime. Who knows where ideas come? Mostly ideas come in the shower. Right?
Agreed.
They never come in structured time when you're supposed to be innovating. They come in the weirdest times. And the important thing is to be open to that. That's the way it works. It's serendipity. And they never come with trumpets sounding. Brilliant ideas about to occur. Bong! They're little tiny things. And they're very fragile. And you have to be willing to listen to those. Just pull gently on the thread. Could be any time. They come in the shower. Like, seriously, a good corporate strategy for those of you in big companies to have better innovation, showers. It sounds funny. Why? It shouldn't. That's the truth. That's where they come from. Anytime, and it's just you. The only thing that is costing you or risking for you is the time that you spend to think the thing through and bounce it around with some people, and pretty low cost. That's the first step. You come up with a good idea. Now you're going to gather around with some buddies, maybe potential founders, and kick the idea around. So you start to form this founder team and spend some time thinking it through. Well, if we did this thing, what kind of product could we make out of it? And who would we sell it to? And why would they want it? And how would we go about actually producing the thing? Just kicking it around. No big analysis, no business plan this thick. Just spend some time doing that. And really, again, it's just your time. You and your friends. The founders who are going to be in the garage to pull this thing off the ground. So at some point then, you have to decide, are we serious or are we just having fun here? We're sitting, we're having a few drinks, we're talking about stuff and dreaming about being these great entrepreneurs who invented this wonderful gadget here. Are you serious though? Because it's a big commitment. A huge commitment of time, a huge commitment of money. All of your money will end up in this. All of your Uncle Nick's money will end up in this. Your reputation, your emotional effort, how much passion this will take to do. It's a huge commitment. And are you serious? And we've been talking about this company for months and months. I'm ready to quit my job and do this. Are you? Because it's time to make a decision. And that has to come. You can't skip over that. I've seen companies get into trouble because as they go along, they discover that one of the 5 founders' heart really wasn't in it, but he wasn't willing to say so. That's a disaster. So you've got to decide, are you serious or not? So if that's the case, next you have to think about, I'm going to be leaving my job. And that's full of pitfalls. I don't know if we've got a session with a lawyer coming later to talk about that or not, but that's fraught with peril, how you leave your employer. If your current employer has anything at all to do with what you're going to be doing in your startup, your company can be sued out of existence. So you have to be quite meticulous about this. How you go about doing this. You will want some professional help with this. And once you do that, you've just turned off the paycheck. So now you're living off your savings. And that's what's at stake. So once you make that step, you better start running quickly. Because you've got to get your company. You're not going to have any payroll again until the company's cash flow positive. So, big step. So you better now get serious about it and produce this business plan. And I know there's a session coming up about business plans. And the business plan is for a couple of things. First is it's a sales tool. It's a sales tool to help resource providers, people with money, people with talent, people with information, people with network connections, the things that your company is going to need, this is something to help them to decide they want to put their resources in. I want to be part of this. Because you spotted this idea, you saw this thing, about, what a great idea. Look at this thing. Oh my God, it's a diamond. Everybody thinks it's just a rock lying on the ground. Yeah, but not everybody thinks like you. They don't see like you. And so you go, no, let me show you. This is not just a rocket, this is a diamond. With your help, you guys come together on this, we're going to be huge. This is going to be hugely successful. I see something, and I want you to see it too. That's one purpose of the business plan. And the other purpose is for you yourself, the process of writing the business plan. The plan itself turns into a document, and it's out of date the minute you print it, and because life goes on, it's a nice document. The value of it is in the effort it takes to create the thing. Because you can pull a business planning template off the web. There's a zillion of them out there. And you just fill in the blanks and you're done. Fill in the blanks with what? Nonsense? Gotta think. It's hard work to think through and produce a good business plan. So that's where we're off to next. We're going to spend the time to do that. The only possibility is maybe we'll discover that this was a bad idea after all. Or we'll put in all that time to produce the business plan, and it won't actually be very compelling. And so I go to some investor and say, would you like to invest in this company? Look at this wonderful idea that we have and what we're going to do. And he's thinking, that's a lame idea. The market's too small. Your team is weak. I don't believe you guys can execute. So it's an unfundable plan. So you have to avoid those kinds of things. If you succeed at that one, now we're on to step 6. Now we need people, because we're going to start doing stuff. We've got a business plan, we're ready to start going. Where are you going to get these people? That's the most important ingredient in the business. Way more important than the money that you get, the people that you get, particularly in the early days. One mishire in the early days can kill the company. You need to get really good people. And my rule of thumb in every company I was in is I wanted to be the weak link. I want everybody there to be smarter than me, harder working than me, more disciplined than me. I want to be the weak link. So you've got to go out and get these people. And you've got to figure out, where am I going to get them from? And finding and attracting good people, the kind you want, the superstars, the A-level people, takes a long time. And you better have a compelling pitch. Why should you want to quit your job and come join my startup? So we go out and find our people. We'll need some money. Now we go doing the rounds trying to raise some money. Because now we can tell the investors, look at the team I've put together. They're all standing by. Once you cut me a check, they're all quitting their job and joining. They have mortgages. They can't quit until you give me some money. But they're all lined up. Because that's what I want to see in a business plan. I don't want to see details of the product. Frankly, when I was investing, I don't care about the product. I'm not the customer. I'm an investor. I care about the company. That's why I care about the quality of the business plan, and mostly I care about the quality of the people that you've got. So now you're ready. Go out and raise the money. And we've got a whole session coming up in the series about how to do that. So, fine, we found somebody. But it's a long and complicated process how to actually close the investment. And the lawyers will get involved, and you will end up producing just subscription agreements and term sheets, and it's a binder this thick. Now, maybe you'll be lucky. One of your first rounds will be with an angel investor who will write a promissory note. You finish it all on the table. You know that Starbucks at King and Young, the big table in the back? How many deals go down on that table? Okay, great, we're done. But you'll eventually get into some deals that take a lot of papering over, because there's all kinds of interesting clauses and things that investors will put in to protect their interests, and you have to decide which ones of those you're willing to accept. That's the price of getting money, and which ones of those you're not willing to accept, because you don't have to take that, because your idea is so good you can get more attractive money somewhere else. The better quality that you thought, the better bargaining position you are when you're raising money, and the more that you can hold out for deal terms and conditions that you like. So we get that, we've got the check in the bank, we can start to do things. Depending what the company is, we might need facilities now. We might need space. We need a storefront. We need a factory. We need specialized equipment. You better think through all of that stuff. And how do you go and get all that stuff? It's got to be installed. There are lead times to get stuff in place before we can finally turn the thing on. So we're ready to start actually operating. We're ready to start producing products. And how are we actually going to produce these things? What is our production process? Production, the whole operations side of the business, is not very sexy. So a lot of people ignore it. They're interested in marketing and finance. But you can't do anything if you can't produce. How are you going to deliver? Marketing will go and find customers, right? Marketing's job in a company is to catch customers, right? Turn them upside down and shake them until money falls out. But you can't do that if you can't deliver on the promise. Marketing promises all kinds of things. Salespeople will promise all kinds of things. But if you can't deliver, it won't hold. So you've got to think about the operations. What are we actually going to do to delight these customers? Give them what we've promised them. That's often an underlooked or under-considered side of the business. At some point, we'll need to raise more money. Now we're growing. We've got real customers. We've got working capital to fund. We've got expansions to do. We want to open new offices. We have to increase our production facilities, all that kind of stuff. So there's rounds of more money to raise, and you start getting into bigger sources of funds that are more bureaucratic. It takes longer. The administration of it is harder. So raising more money, Eventually, we're up and running. We've got products out there. We actually managed to build it. It goes out, it works, it's in our distribution channel. We figured out what our distribution channel is. We made the deal with distributors. All these things take more time than you think. So we got it out there. Customers are buying it, and that magic day, we have revenues. We're still not cash positive, but at least we have revenues. That's a great day. Not as good as the day we start actually making money. So now we're up and going, and our big cost is the burn rate, and that you've got to watch. The only thing I ever learned about accounting is I don't care about anything about accounting except cash. I want to know what's my burn rate, how much money am I burning through a month, right? For payroll for these employees and the rent on my facilities and all that stuff. What's my burn rate, and how much money have I got in the bank? Simple division will tell you how many months you have left to live. That's how much runway is left for your company. That's the only important number I cared about. How much runway have I got left? So if I've got 9 months runway at this burn rate, and it takes me 6 months to close a round of financing, then I've only got 3 months, and then I better be on the road raising money again. You follow? So you spend all of your time raising money. If you've got a good idea and you're growing, you spend all your time on the road raising money. Which means you're not in the business producing any product or catching any customers. This is a problem. So you have to think about these things. You get the product out there, what's the burn rate? If the burn rate is too high, we're going to need more money, or we've got to cut the burn rate somehow. How can we keep this kind of traction forward? How can we keep producing things like this and reduce? We've got to get really good at squeezing pennies. Every penny that you can squeeze stretches your runway, which gives you another few days to work on the business instead of out raising money. You've got to do that to be successful. So product is out there. They like it, they're buying it. Now we've got to manage growth. And as you start to grow the company changes. Because it started off just the 5 of you. You and your buddies. And then it was 10 in the company. And then there's 20 in the company. Then there's 100. And we're a $1 million revenue company. Then you're a $10 million revenue company. One day you'll be a $100 million revenue company. These companies are not the same. Even at the beginning, a $10 million company, that's a small company. It's a $10 million company and a $5 million company. Life is very different. For you, life is very different. The nature of the problems that you have to deal with, the complexity of them, very different. And what you will find as you go through these growth phases is you keep getting thrown at you new challenges that you never had to deal with before. And moreover, all those things that made you successful up until today no longer work. In fact, some of them you should stop doing because they will kill you. Yes, they worked in the past, but they won't work in this new company. And every day it's a new company. You're in a fast-growing company, you've got to be flexible and learning new stuff all the time. You can never rest on your laurels. So you've got to be ready for that. Last stage, keep up that growth and eventually get to that magic day. You can find some way to monetize the whole thing, depending on how long you want to stay in the company. But at some point, you're going to sell the company or put it out in a public offering or something, and you get that big financial reward. Maybe that's what motivated you. I doubt it. There's a lot of things motivate entrepreneurs. And surprisingly far down the list is the money. Entrepreneurs get motivated by the sheer joy of this process. I mean, I've painted it very quickly here, painted it as pretty onerous. It's a hell of a lot of fun. This is the best thing you can be doing. What do you want to do instead of this? 40 years in a little cloth-lined 10-foot square cubicle in some tower? This is great. But it's a lot of work, and there is this huge pot of gold at the end.